These weren't just tractors, they were field-dominating iron monsters that shook the ground, rattled windows, and made grown farmers stop and stare. The 1980s was the last great era of raw, unapologetic brute force farming machines, when manufacturers were locked in a brutal horsepower war and the fields became the battleground. 10 of these legends rose above all others. Some still haunt auction barns today. Let's count them down. Number 10. Massey Ferguson, 2805. Kicking things off at number 10 is a machine that many people forget about when they talk 1980s iron, the Massey Ferguson 2805. Now, Massey Ferguson was going through serious corporate turbulence during this period. Their parent company nearly went bankrupt. But before the financial walls closed in, they managed to produce some legitimately impressive high-horsepower row-crop tractors, and the 2805 is the crown jewel of that era. Under that hood sat a Perkins ATV 8.640 engine, a turbocharged 10.5-liter, 640 cubic inch V8 diesel. That's right, a V8. In the early 1980s, putting a V8 diesel in a row crop tractor was a statement. That engine produced 190 horsepower at 2,500 RPM. This wasn't some small four-cylinder machine. This was a thundering 8-cylinder powerhouse wrapped in a red and gray shell. The 2805 came in at a weight range of 13,500 to 16,035 pounds with a 110-inch wheelbase. Operators could choose between a 24-speed power-shift transmission or an 8-speed mechanical shuttle gearbox, and it came standard with a fully enclosed cab with air conditioning, still a premium feature in the early 1980s. Production ended in 1983. Today, the 2805 is a collector's piece. Hard to find, harder to find in good condition. It represents Massey Ferguson's last serious push into the high-horsepower row crop segment before financial collapse reshaped the brand. Underrated, under-discussed, and absolutely worth remembering. Number 9. International Harvester 548088. At number 9, we have one of the most significant tractors in International Harvester history, and one of the last. In 1981, International Harvester unveiled the bold new 50 series. These machines featured sleek, modern styling, angular, clean, and purposeful, a dramatic shift from previous IH designs. At the top sat the 5488, rated at 185 PTO horsepower and 163 drawbar horsepower. It was built in Rock Island, Illinois, with a total production of just 3,951 units. That relatively small number makes surviving tractors highly sought after today. Original pricing reached approximately $66,000 for two-wheel drive and over $78,000 for four-wheel drive in 1985. But the real story isn't just the machine, it's what happened around it. By the early 1980s, International Harvester was in serious financial trouble. A devastating strike, a collapsing farm economy. In 1984, Tenneco, owner of J.I. Case, stepped in. The agricultural division became Case International, and then Case 1H in 1985, which means the 5488 is one of the rare tractors that exists under two legendary brand identities at once. It was born as an IH and lived on as a Case IH. The 5488's power, styling, and timing made it one of the most important tractors of its era. And today, every surviving example is not just a machine, it's a piece of history. Number 8. Versatile 895. Number 8 on our list is a Canadian-built monster that doesn't get nearly enough credit south of the border. The Versatile 895. Versatile Manufacturing of Winnipeg, Manitoba, was one of the great names in articulated four-wheel drive tractor history. While American farmers were focused on the big US brands, Versatile was quietly building some of the most capable and durable high-horsepower tractors on the planet for the massive prairie farms of Canada and the American Great Plains. The 895 packed a Cummins engine producing 310 horsepower. 310. In an articulated four-wheel drive chassis, that gave the 895 the kind of drawbar pull that could drag enormous tillage implements across hard-packed prairie soil without breaking a sweat. Versatile's engineering philosophy was different, built for real-world durability. Long days, extreme temperature swings, zero tolerance for downtime. And the 895 embodied that philosophy perfectly. Interestingly, Versatile went through its own corporate upheaval in the 1980s. Ford New Holland acquired the company in 1987, ending its era as an independent Canadian manufacturer. But the machines built before that, including the 895, remain some of the purest examples of North American agricultural engineering. For any serious wheat or canola farmer in the 1980s, a Versatile 895 was as credible as anything coming out of Marlin or Racine. Number 7. Ford TW35. Number 7 is Ford's big gun of the 1980s, the TW35. The largest and most powerful tractor in Ford's TW series lineup. Ford had been building tractors for decades, but the TW series was their move into the true high horsepower segment. At the top sat the TW35, powered by a Ford 6-cylinder diesel, producing 188 horsepower. Now, on paper, that number might not seem extreme compared to others on this list, and that's fair. But the real story of the TW35 isn't just horsepower, it's the package. Ford built this machine for reliability, for farmers who needed a tractor that would start every morning and finish every day. No drama, no surprises. The TW35 featured Ford's dual power transmission system, a closed-center hydraulic system, and a fully enclosed cab that was genuinely impressive for its time. Good visibility, low noise, strong ergonomics, and just as important, dealer support. Ford's network was massive. Parts were available. Service was available anywhere. For many operations, that mattered more than chasing bigger horsepower numbers, because a tractor that doesn't run doesn't make money. The TW35 remained in production until 1990, making it one of the longest-running tractors of the decade. And today, it's remembered as one of Ford's finest agricultural machines. Number 6. Allis-Chalmers 8070. At number 6, we have one of the most tragically short-lived great tractors of the 1980s, the Allis-Chalmers 8070. Allis-Chalmers, based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was one of the most storied names in American farm equipment. By the early 1980s, they were fighting to stay relevant against larger, better capitalized competitors. The 8070 was their answer, a machine built to go toe-to-toe with anything on the market. It was powered by a turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel producing 180 horsepower. It came with a full operator cab, a strong hydraulic system, and everything a serious large acreage farmer needed. By every objective measure, it was competitive, it was capable, and it was well designed. But the company behind it was running out of time. The agricultural recession of the early to mid-1980s hit hard, and Allis-Chalmers was already vulnerable. In 1985, they sold their agricultural division to Deutz AG of Germany. The new company, Deutz Allis, continued production briefly, before eventually becoming part of AGO. The 8070's production run lasted only 3 years, which means today, surviving examples are genuinely rare. This tractor represents something bigger than itself, one of the final chapters of a proud American manufacturer, a machine that was ready to compete but never got the chance it deserved. If you ever see one at a show or auction, you're not just looking at a tractor, you're looking at a piece of American agricultural history. Number 5. Case IH Magnum 7140. We're in the top 5 now. And at number 5 is a tractor that didn't just compete, it changed the industry. The Case IH Magnum 7140. The backstory here is remarkable. In 1985, Case completed its acquisition of International Harvester's agricultural operations. Now they had 2 engineering teams, 2 dealer networks, 2 product lines. What they needed was proof the merger worked. In August 1987, Case IH gathered dealers in Denver, Colorado. and revealed something that stunned the entire room. The Magnum 7100 series, 4 models, the 7110, the 7120, the 7130, and at the top, the 7140, the one everyone wanted. At its core was a Cummins-built diesel, 505 cubic inches of displacement, built through the Cummins Consolidated Diesel Company partnership. The 7140 was turbocharged and intercooled, producing 195 PTO horsepower, and in Nebraska testing, it delivered nearly 198 horsepower, the original price, about $91,000 in 1993. But the real breakthrough wasn't just power, it was the transmission, a full power shift system, not partial, not limited, a true advancement. Shifting a Magnum felt different, smooth, fast, confident. The Magnum 7100 series became one of the most successful row crop tractor lines ever built, and the 7140 stood at the top of that legacy. This wasn't just a good tractor, this was proof that the 1985 merger actually worked. Number 4. Steiger Panther ST310 and the Steiger story. At number 4, we can't put just one model because the entire Steiger line deserves the conversation. But if we're pinpointing the peak of their 1980s lineup, we're talking about the Panther and Tiger series, with the ST310 Panther among the most notable. The Steiger story is genuinely one of the most uniquely American stories in agricultural machinery history. It started with John Steiger and his sons Douglas and Maurice, who were farmers near Red Lake Falls, Minnesota. They needed a bigger tractor than anything commercially available, so they built one themselves in 1958. That homemade machine performed so well that neighbors started asking them to build more. By 1963, Steiger Tractor Inc. was officially in business in Fargo, North Dakota. By the 1980s, Steiger had become one of the premier names in articulated 4WD tractors. Their machines were large, powerful, orange machines named after big cats: Panther, Tiger, Lion, Cougar, Bearcat. These weren't subtle names, and the machines weren't subtle either. The Steiger Panther ST310 produced 310 engine horsepower from a Cummins engine, planted inside an articulated 4WD chassis that could pull massive tillage implements across enormous fields without hesitation. Steiger also produced the massive Lion 1000, a 400 horsepower machine that was among the most powerful production tractors available anywhere in the world at the time. Steiger built their reputation on machines that could handle the brutal demands of large-scale prairie and plains farming. Long days, abrasive soil, punishing loads. Their tractors were not luxury items. They were working machines built to an uncompromising standard. The company went through financial difficulties in the mid-1980s farm recession, and in 1986, Case IH purchased Steiger. The machines continued to be produced under the Case IH name, but the original Steiger identity had ended. For the men who grew up running orange Steigers, that purchase was a bittersweet moment, validation that their machines were worth acquiring, but the end of an independent legend. Number 3. John Deere 4650. The bronze medal belongs to one of the most beloved row crop tractors John Deere ever produced, the 4650. John Deere introduced 11 new 50 series tractors in 1982, covering a horsepower range from 40 all the way up to 193 horsepower. The 4650 sat at the top of that row crop lineup, producing 165 engine horsepower from a John Deere turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel engine. What made the 4650 exceptional wasn't just the power, it was the complete package. John Deere's famous Sound Guard cab was one of the best operator environments available in the early 1980s. The visibility was excellent, the noise isolation was superior to most competitors, and the layout of controls was genuinely ergonomic and intuitive. Farmers who climbed into a 4650 often felt the difference immediately. The 4650 came with John Deere's Perma-Clutch wet disc clutch system, a 15-speed power shift transmission option, closed center hydraulics, and John Deere's load and depth control for the 3-point hitch. It was a tractor that combined serious power with the kind of operator comfort and machine intelligence that made long days in the field more productive and less exhausting. The 4650 was available in both 2WD and MFWD mechanical front-wheel drive configurations, giving operators flexibility for different field conditions. The MFWD option dramatically improved traction and turning radius, and by the mid-1980s, more and more farmers were specifying it as standard equipment. The 4650 weighed approximately 16,600 to 17,800 pounds depending on configuration and became one of John Deere's strongest-selling models throughout its production run. It was the tractor that anchored John Deere's presence in the competitive high-horsepower row crop segment for an entire decade. Farmers who ran them often ran them hard for hundreds of thousands of hours, and they rarely disappointed. To this day, the John Deere 4650 is one of the most commonly found vintage high-horsepower row crop tractors at agricultural shows and working farms across North America. It is, simply put, one of the greatest row crop tractors ever built. Number 2. John Deere 8850. The runner-up spot belongs to a machine that was, for its time, the most powerful production tractor John Deere had ever built, the absolutely legendary 8850. When John Deere unveiled 3 new articulated 4WD tractors in the fall of 1981, the 8450, the 8650, and the 8850, the entire agricultural machinery world took notice. The 8450 produced 225 horsepower, the 8650 produced 290 horsepower, and the 8850 was the nuclear option. Under that massive hood sat a John Deere-built 15.7-liter 955 cubic inch V8 turbocharged intercooled diesel engine. A V8. John Deere had never put a V8 into a production tractor before. The 8850 was the only John Deere farm tractor to ever use this engine. The same V8 was also installed in the JD 844 wheel loader and the 990 hydraulic excavator, but among tractors, the 8850 stood alone. That engine produced 370 horsepower at 2,100 RPM. At Nebraska tractor tests conducted in May 1982, the 8850 produced a tested PTO power of 303.99 horsepower and a tested drawbar power of 269.77 horsepower, with a maximum drawbar pull of 35,330 pounds. It consumed 19.2 gallons of fuel per hour under full load. This was a machine that devoured diesel. The 8850 was equipped with John Deere's quad-range transmission, a partial power shift unit offering 16 forward and 6 reverse gears. The closed-center constant pressure hydraulic system pumped 44 gallons per minute. The Sound Guard cab featured air conditioning and provided excellent visibility over the hood. The 8850 weighed 37,700 pounds in operating configuration and sat on a 133-inch wheelbase. It required massive dual rear tires, 20.838 or 20.842, to put all that power to the ground effectively. It was manufactured in Waterloo, Iowa, from 1982 to 1988. Its original list price in 1983 was approximately $122,694, an enormous sum at a time when the farm crisis was squeezing incomes to breaking point. One important note on reliability: the V8 engine in the 8850 developed a reputation for being problematic over time. Many surviving examples have since been retrofitted with 6-cylinder Cummins engines, which are considered more durable for the long haul. But in its day, at peak performance, the 8850 was an absolute monster. This was the tractor that cemented John Deere's dominance of the large 4WD market going into the late 1980s. It is, without question, one of the greatest tractors of the decade. Number 1. Big Bud 16 V747. And here it is, the undisputed number 1. The machine that makes every other tractor on this list look like a compact utility model. The Big Bud 16 V747. Now, technically, the Big Bud 747 was built in 1977 before the 1980s officially began. But this machine spent the prime of its working life deep in the 1980s, and no list of 1980s tractor monsters is complete without it. When we talk about field-dominating iron from this era, the 747 doesn't just belong on the list, it is the list. The Big Bud 747 was designed by Wilbur Hensler and built by Ron Harmon and the crew of the Northern Manufacturing Company in Havre, Montana. The client was the Rossi brothers, Elmer and Melvin, cotton farmers from Bakersfield, California. Their specific need was deep ripping, breaking up the hard-pan soil on their enormous California farm at depths of up to 20 inches. Conventional tractors and bulldozers weren't cutting it, so they ordered something unconventional. The cost of construction was $300,000 in 1977 dollars. The machine was named after the Boeing 747, the largest passenger aircraft in the world at the time, and the name was completely appropriate. The heart of the 747 is a 24.14-liter Detroit Diesel Series 71 V16 two-stroke diesel engine, 16 cylinders, a two-stroke diesel V16. When it was completed in January 1978 and delivered to California, that engine was rated at 760 horsepower. The Rossi brothers used it for 11 years on their cotton farm before selling it. The 747's dimensions are almost impossible to believe until you stand next to one. It was over 27 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 14 feet tall to the top of the cab. The 8-foot diameter tires were custom-made by the United Tire Company of Canada. No standard tire manufacturer made anything large enough. The fuel tank held 1,000 gallons. When fully fueled, the machine weighed over 100,000 pounds. In ballasted operating configuration, the weight reached 135,000 pounds. Pulling an 80-foot field cultivator, the Big Bud 747 was capable of tilling 1.3 acres per minute. That's 60 to 70 acres per hour. There was nothing else like it on Earth. After leaving the Rossi brothers, the 747 was sold to Willowbrook Farms in Indialantic, Florida, where it continued deep ripping work. In 1997, the Williams brothers of Big Sandy, Montana purchased the machine, rebuilt it over that winter, and increased its power output to 900 horsepower. In 2011, with new injectors fitted, the output was increased further to 1,100 horsepower. The United Tire Company's bankruptcy in 2000 created a parts crisis for the 747's custom 8-foot tires, and by July 2009, the machine was retired from regular field work. In September 2020, the Williams brothers brought the Big Bud 747 back to their farm in Chouteau County, Montana, where it worked fields again with an 80-foot cultivator. The Big Bud 747 holds the Guinness World Record as the largest agricultural tractor, a record it has held for decades. There was only one ever built, not one of a small production run. One machine, one purpose, one era. It is the undisputed king of the 1980s fields, and no tractor in history has matched it for sheer presence, power, or legend. If you have a favorite 1980s tractor that you think deserved a spot on this list, drop it in the comments below. And if you want to see more deep dives into the greatest agricultural machines ever built, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started.